You're listening to Eating for Eden, episode 29. When it comes to doing something about climate change, your food choices matter. Thanks for tuning in to Eating for Eden, a podcast that takes a food-first approach to climate action. I'm your host, Jessica J. Schroeder, and I am passionate about food that tastes good and does good. I'll guide you with practical tips and help you thoroughly enjoy your food along the way. Before we get started today, I wanted to say that there's still time to snag my highly discounted nutrition coaching rates. If you've been noodling on this but have questions or concerns, feel free to reach out to me with questions. Just email edenandme@substack.com. If this is the first time you're hearing about this opportunity and you'd like to learn more, check out episode 26. In that episode, I talk about this offer, who it's for, what to expect, and so forth. There are limited spots available, so don't wait. And if you're listening to this episode well after it was released, but you're interested in coaching, please do reach out to see what I'm up to and what my going rates are at this time. I'd love to hear from you. Okay, let's dive into today's topic. If you spent any time listening to Eating for Eden, you've probably picked up on the fact that I love food. I also love the cooking process. It's super life-giving to me. But you may not find yourself in the same relationship with food. Maybe you really enjoy food, but you don't really like the time and effort it takes to prepare it. You don't like to cook. Or maybe you don't even care that much about what you eat as far as taste is concerned. Eating for you is just a necessary part of life. If you find yourself in a place similar to either of those, fear not. I'm here to equip you. If you want to be more thoughtful about what you're eating and how it affects the environment, but you're not jazzed about spending a lot of time in the kitchen, this episode is for you. If that's not you, I'll bet you know someone who fits this description. So listen in to see if you think they might benefit, and then share it around. Today, we're going to focus in on how to eat in a climate-friendly way with minimal effort in the kitchen. Ready? Okay. First things first, the approach I take here is going to be plant-based, by which I mean plant-predominant to plant-exclusive. If you're new around here, I suggest checking out episodes 1 and 3 to understand the basics of why plant-based eating is best for planetary health. Also, episode 18 expands on what exactly I mean by the term plant-based, if you're interested in checking that out. So if you don't like to cook, I'm going to assume that you want recipes that come together quickly, require minimal effort, and free up more time for you and energy for you to use and focus elsewhere. To achieve these things, there are some core principles you can keep in mind concerning both ingredients and cooking methods to prioritize. As far as ingredients go, your best friends will be items that require very little cooking or prep time. This includes items such as canned beans, pre-cut veggies, frozen veggies, quick cooking whole grains, pastas, pre-washed salad greens, pre-roasted nuts and seeds, frozen shelled edamame, tempeh, and firm, extra firm, or super firm tofu. These are all time savers as they're either 1, already cooked, or 2, they cook quickly, and they require very little or no time to cut or otherwise prepare. And while that initial list of ingredients was primarily focused on items used in savory meals, especially lunches and dinners, a few ingredients to consider for quick breakfasts, especially those on the sweeter side, include quick cooking rolled oats, plant milks and store-bought yogurts, fresh fruit and frozen fruit, and nut butters. And obviously those things are not exhaustive. Those are just ideas to get you started. And based on your desire to minimize time in the kitchen, consider leaning into the following cooking methods. First, there's roasting. This is particularly great for cool weather months as the extra heat contributes to warming your home. Consider avoiding this method in the warmer months, so like in the summer, so that you don't have to fight the extra heat with extra AC. Some examples of time-saving ways to roast food include sheet pan dinners, in which everything is simply thrown on a baking tray and set in the oven to cook. This could look like an assortment of vegetables and a protein, like sweet potatoes, broccoli, and tempeh seasoned with soy sauce, ginger, and garlic, or maybe onions, bell peppers, zucchini, and white beans with olive oil, garlic, and Italian herbs, maybe with some kale added just before it's done roasting. You just toss it all in and the oven does the rest. Another go-to method, one especially good for warmer months but appropriate for any time of year, is quick stir fries. These use just one pan, typically, and everything comes together quickly. Typically, you're cooking ingredients like vegetables and tofu, as an example, for just a few minutes each. If you want rice or noodles on the side, you'll need a small pot too, but those can cook at the same time, so you're saving time there, and the cleanup will still be very manageable. Light cooking, light time investment. Next, there's the trusty-dusty slow cooker, often called a crock pot, like people call tissues Kleenex. There are many brands, including the Instant Pot, which can also function as a slow cooker, among many other things. These are set and forget meals. You just toss in all or most of the ingredients at the start of the day, and then you come back at dinner time for a fully cooked meal. This method works best for things like soups and other saucy meals like curries, etc., that aren't fussy. A related method, but quite unique, is using a pressure cooker. Most common these days, at least in the States, is the Instant Pot. In a pressure cooker, due to the use of pressurization, things that can take a long time to cook on the stovetop, such as dried beans and whole grains, cook more quickly. Just be aware that it does take time to build up pressure before the cooking time begins, and some items, like beans, do best sitting for 15 minutes or so after cooking before using a quick release function to release built up pressure. So while the total time from raw to cooked actually isn't reduced a whole lot, the benefit is that you can set it and forget it. Since it's all enclosed and safe, you don't need to babysit a simmering pot of, say, dried beans, for example. This has been a game changer for me, especially with dried beans. I cook them several times a week now without really batting an eye because it hardly requires any effort from me. Finally, there are food prep options requiring no cooking at all. This is for things like salads, cold dips, sandwiches, and so on. You could put together a spread of hummus, sliced veg, crackers, fruit, and nuts, and you've got yourself a lovely plant-based charcuterie board. Or like me, you could just sit down to a bowl of hummus topped with olive oil and sumac and grab some crusty bread and tuck in. Just call it a meal. Nice and simple. There are additional ways to save time in the kitchen, some of which may take a bit of a mindset shift or new habit formation, but could end up serving you really well in the long run. For instance, you can take a bit of initial effort to get used to planning ahead. Intention plus a little bit of extra effort in advance can save you time later. So for example, take a breakfast of overnight oats. It just takes a couple of minutes to put this together the night before and for a quick, easy breakfast in the morning. Often, if you just layer it up, say in a mason jar, you can just grab it as you walk out the door on your way to work or public transportation or whatever. Another example of planning ahead could be soaking grains or beans before cooking them to reduce the cook time. So if you're doing that with grains, you can do this the night before for a breakfast grain like millet, or you can set another grain like quinoa to soak in the morning if you're going to cook it up for dinner. Another good habit to get into is reading a recipe in full before deciding whether to make it. Recipes that include estimated cook times often, at least I find, underestimate the time required to make the dish. This is not always the case, but I think in an effort to draw more people to seemingly quick and easy recipes, People will note how long it takes to, quote, cook a meal, starting from having all the ingredients on the counter and ready to go, all the equipment ready to go, etc., thus not counting for any time spent washing or prepping the veg, heating up a pan, and so forth. This is not meant to make you cynical or turn you away from cooking or from trying new recipes. It's just a pointer to get familiar with what a recipe requires in full before committing. Know yourself. If you don't want to have to do X or Y in the kitchen, then avoid recipes that have you do X or Y. If you're fine cooking A, B, and C on a regular basis and prefer Z cooking method, look for those things in recipes. Know yourself again. Know your preferences and use those boundaries to help yourself out. For meals when you're skipping your home kitchen altogether, a few tips for plant-friendly options for when you're eating out or getting takeaway include going meatless, and that's your biggest lever to pull by far, choosing to avoid or omit dairy, and overall aiming to emphasize plants. As far as types of food, typically ethnic cuisines will offer the most variety of plant-forward options. So think Indian, Thai, Middle Eastern, Mediterranean, and so on. As I wrap up, I want to say that I still hold out hope for anyone who says they don't like to cook. I don't think it's my job to transform everyone into an avid home cook. Some people just don't have the desire to allocate their time in such a way, and that's okay. Personally, I'm not willing to sacrifice the extra flavor I get from the additional time and effort I spend in the kitchen, but that's because it's worth it to me, and both the extra flavor and the cooking process itself bring me joy. If that's not you, don't sweat it. You don't have to love being in the kitchen to cook and eat in a planet-friendly way. It's all about finding plant-forward meals that incorporate ingredients and cooking methods that require only a small amount of time. And as I've noted in examples already, there are plenty of those. Finally, if you don't like to cook at present, but you wish you liked to cook, here are some parting thoughts I'll leave you with. 1, pay attention as you cook. Listen, look, smell, taste as you go. How do things change as they cook? How do the onions sizzle when they hit the hot pan? How do the edges of your veggies brown from being roasted? And then what do they taste like because of that? How does the aroma of the spices rise up when you stir them into the pot? If you did something differently than last time you made the dish, what was the outcome this time? These are not a list of questions you need to sit down and ponder over or write down, journal about. This is simply a set of possible questions you might have running through your mind as you stand at the counter or the stove, taking part in the cooking process. Paying attention and thus learning to notice what is happening is key for appreciating the process and the art that is cooking. 2, check out some cookbooks. Go to your local library, yes, in person, and pick up some cookbooks off the shelf. Flip through several and select 2 or 3 that catch your eye and draw you in for whatever reason. Don't overthink it. Once you have them at home, open them up when you have some downtime. You don't need to have the aim of cooking from them. Just explore. If you find a recipe compelling, by all means, give it a shot. But initially, just give yourself the space to be curious. See what recipes or elements of particular dishes stand out to you. Make note and stay curious. And 3, when you feel ready, branch out and try a new recipe that interests you. This might be something you found in a cookbook. It might be from a food blog, maybe Eden and Me, or it might be a recommendation from a friend. The key here is to focus on joy. Don't force yourself to do this. If you don't want to, then don't. Doing it is not the point. It's about growing an interest in cooking, so only do it if it sounds fun, and see how you feel once you're making the dish, and then how much enjoyment you get once you sit down to eat it. All right? All right. Well, I'll leave it there for today. I hope something here was helpful for you on your food journey, or perhaps you have someone in mind you'd like to share this with. Either way, I hope these tips have been encouraging and helpful for you or a friend. If you have questions or topics that you'd like me to address here on Eating for Eden, I'd love to hear from you. send an email to edenandme@substack.com. Also, if you've been enjoying this podcast, please consider leaving a review. It's a great help for getting these important words out to others. And if you want recipes, check out edenandme.com, where you can find a variety of delicious, healthy recipes to bring what you're learning into the kitchen. Finally, become an email subscriber on Substack to have a new podcast episode delivered directly to your inbox each week. If you appreciate the work I'm doing and want to support the show, you'll also have the option of becoming a paid subscriber. That's all for now, friends. Until next time, be well. Thanks for listening to Eating for Eden. If you found this episode informative or inspiring, please consider sharing it with a friend. Climate change is an issue we all need to tackle together, so let's invite others to journey along with us as we continue the conversation and start taking action. Until next week, friends, take care.